This podcast may contain disturbing content for some listeners. It's intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. This is True Crime XS.
Breaking news right now on WREL. We are learning new information in two cases tonight where law enforcement officers fired their weapons at suspects. In the last hour, we learned an SBI agent shot and killed the man found dead outside this mobile home in Granville County after an 18-hour standoff. And the SBI has taken the lead to determine why two Rocky Mount police officers fired a weapon after a man ran away from a traffic stop. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Deborah Morgan.
And I'm David Crabtree. We have live coverage of the developments in both locations tonight. Rosalia Federa is in the breaking news tracker in Rocky Mount. And we begin with Keely Arthur live in a rural part of Granville County. Keely, you just spoke with a person who saw all of this begin.
Yes, David, he's lived in this area off of Kennedy Mill Road, the road behind me, for 15 years. And when I told him exactly what had happened, he said he was shocked. You can see authorities are still here on the scene tonight. Neighbors say this is a very out of the ordinary sight. Here is a timeline, though, of the events that's transpired over the last 24 hours. So yesterday at 5 p.m., agents with the State Bureau of Investigations and Granville County Sheriff's Office came to this residence, you can see in the video, to execute a search warrant and an arrest warrant at the mobile home for multiple charges related to sex crimes, including child pornography. Now, the suspect retreated into the home and stayed there, resulting in a 18-hour-long standoff. Now, this morning at 11 a.m., the suspect came out of the home with a gun, according to the SBI, and that's when an agent with the Investigation Bureau shot and killed him. Now, William Hoyle, who lives just down the road, said he never thought anyone accused of these kinds of crimes would be living in this area.
I would have never have thought. I mean, everybody has the internet now, knows where, former sex offenders live around them, because that's just part of our, technological world. But I never would have thought anything like this would happen in this quiet community.
And William added that there is an elementary school that both of his kids went to just right around this area. The DA will be reviewing this case, including the involvement and the efforts by the SBI agents. The name of the agent and the name of the suspect has yet to be released. David?
Keely Arthur reporting live in Granville County.
New details this morning on one of the deadliest days for the FBI in nearly 35 years. Agents carried the body of one of the fallen into a medical examiner's office yesterday after an ambush that left 2 agents dead and 3 others were hurt. 43-year-old Laura Schwarzenberger had been with the FBI for 16 years. 36-year-old Daniel Alphen joined in 2009. Now, both of these fallen agents specialized in crimes against children. Manuel Bojorquez is in Sunrise, Florida, where the gunman reportedly looked through his doorbell camera before just opening fire. Manuel, good morning to you. Such a terrible story.
It really is, Gail. Good morning. And one day after the shooting, special teams remain here on the scene trying to piece together exactly what led up to it, what the agents may have known about the suspect going in, and how the gunman could have known they were coming.
SWAT operation is multi-gunshot victim. Total of 5 patients at this time.
The South Florida Sun-Sentinel reports the FBI team came under fire before they had a chance to enter the apartment where they were serving a warrant related to child pornography Tuesday.
They were valuable members of the FBI and will forever be heroes.
The FBI says slain agents Daniel Alphen and Laura Schwarzenberger were very involved in their community.
Sextortion is a form of sexual exploitation.
Agent Schwarzenberger appeared on local television and visited area schools, teaching children how to avoid predators.
That they had great professional reputations will make their memory even more powerful.
Stephanie Douglas knows the perils all too well. She's a retired FBI agent. She says the shooting highlights the dangers law enforcement officers face when serving warrants, and that investigators will look meticulously at how this one was planned.
You really can't anticipate what you're going to receive on the other end of that door.
The suspect's reported use of a doorbell camera before the shooting is a tactic known to the FBI. Back in 2017, the FBI sent out a report detailing how cameras could be used by criminals to see who's approaching. Tuesday's shooting happened just 30 miles from another deadly incident for the FBI, an April 1986 shootout that killed 2 agents. Douglas says the agency found lessons there to better train agents and will do the same with this tragedy.
The lessons that will be learned from this will be shared with agents in the future.
One injured agent was treated here at the scene and released. 2 others remain in the hospital this morning in stable condition. The agency said it will not release the name of the gunman until his family has been notified. Anthony?
Manuel, thank you.
There's been a ton of true crime news in just like the last few weeks. There's like some horrific shit happening. And I don't know how much of this, I think you know most of what I'm going to talk about, like right now, as we prep to open with that case. But 2 FBI agents got killed. Multiple agents were shot down in Florida, serving warrants for crimes against children. One of the guys was Daniel Alphen, who was a part of Operation Playpen, which was this huge child exploitation and abuse ring that was busted that had elements all over the world. So that is a huge loss. Sending nothing but good thoughts to his family and loved ones. Lauren Schwarzenberger was part of the same unit as him, and they were just serving a early morning warrant.
Right, and that's terrible to hear about any time. And what I was going to say about that is, of course, we're sending our condolences and the best vibes to everybody involved in that situation. It made me look into a little bit of the history of FBI agents being killed, which in my brain, I am sure nobody will follow me, which is fine. In my brain, that goes right along with how many serial killers are there? And so I was like, well, how many FBI agents have been killed? And I came to the number of 81, and that's 81 before yesterday's tragedy. A total of 37 of those 81 were killed essentially by a bad guy in some form or fashion. The others were killed during training exercises, accidents, and there's actually recently quite a few that have died from some of the conditions that they got from the toxic elements of working at Ground Zero immediately following 9/11. And those are a lot of the most recent deaths are from that. I found it, the 2 agents being shot yesterday, it made me wonder as to a perspective on, is that a lot? Is it not a lot? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I feel like it's high, but I know that you don't see it the same way that I do. I don't think.
I don't know. Well, I was surprised. I thought there was going to be I thought it was a low number, especially, and it's not to say they don't deserve to be honored as dying in the line of duty. So my pathway to that is a bad guy taking out a good guy. Okay, directly. And, that leaves me with 37. And that's just the way my brain thinks. I'm not saying that the other people shouldn't be counted. I'm just saying it just seems to me like with all the work that the FBI has done in its lifetime as an agency in the United States, 37 agents being killed by a bad guy, it's not a lot.
Yeah, look at it from that perspective. I can agree with what you're saying. The reason I said I felt like it was a lot was because the agency is so new. And for people who don't know the history of the FBI, they've only been around since technically 1901, although what they were for 20 years was not what we know as the FBI. It was a very, very different mission-oriented law enforcement agency that is now, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But the version that we know today is huge. It has not been like that. It's been very small and very elite. And I just felt like the number was high because, if you look at the U.S. Marshals, they've been around since the 1790s, maybe a little before. and they have 200 deaths, but that's like a really long period of time. Okay, maybe it's not. I can agree with what you're saying on the 37. If you divide the number in half.
Well, maybe.
It's less.
Right. And the other interesting aspect about that was most of the time, the people who were killed, they were killed. There was a man who went into the FBI headquarters or an office building of the FBI. And so several people died in that situation.
About Babyface?
At the same time. No, that was a different situation, but there were 3 FBI agents that were killed by Babyface at different times, actually. I think 2 of them were killed one day, and then there was another one killed another day.
2 FBI agents down. It's huge news. It'll start coming out later on other podcasts who will cover it much more in depth. They were serving warrants, and it's fucking terrible is what it is. Moving on from that, like there's this other, like, and I'm not blowing that off. It's just there's not much to say about it right now. They're not going to release it until they've done a pretty detailed investigation. But there is this other thing that happened.
Did you have anything to say about the Oklahoma guy?
5 young children shot and killed in their home, and another person, an adult, also killed. I'm Jessica Shambach.
I'm Evan Onstadt. The children's mother also shot fighting for her life tonight. KOCO's Abigail Ogle joining us here in studio. Abby, with the latest on this really heartbreaking story out of Muskogee.
You guys said young. The ages of the victims range from 1 year old to 24. The murders happened early this morning inside of this home, like you said, in Muskogee. When police got there, before they knew the magnitude of what happened, they say they found the suspect holding a gun.
An officer fires at that suspect who doesn't drop the weapon. That officer misses. The subject takes off running.
After a foot chase, police got the suspect in custody and authorities could begin their investigation. That's when the horror set in as to what happened inside this Muskogee home.
And they discover 4 children that had been shot and killed.
4 children dead inside. Police also found a 24-year-old man who had been shot and killed. We're told that victim was the suspect's own brother. Police found the children's mother had also been shot. They found another child fighting to survive.
And then an adult victim and another child that was transported by life flight to a Tulsa hospital. We were notified a short time later that child is also deceased.
The children's mom, Brittany Anderson, is in the hospital tonight. Police saying she is stable. Police also confirming the names and ages of those killed, starting with a 1-year-old to 24 years old.
It just affects a lot of people. It affects the officers on scene, the dispatchers, EMS, the fire department, but it also affects the people in the community.
Muskogee police say Jaron Pridgeon is in custody for the murders. They say he is not cooperating with their investigation.
It's a tough day in our department. Sad.
We have learned that everyone involved in this, all of the victims and the suspect, lived in that same house. I also just confirmed with Muskogee police guys that 3 other children inside the home as the killings took place, they were not hurt.
So there's 2 cases. One is out of Indianapolis. One is out of Oklahoma, Muskogee, Oklahoma, where a lot of people got shot at one time. And I think the count on both cases might be 6. In one case, you've got Jaron Dijon Pridgeon. This is in Muskogee, Oklahoma. He is accused after someone called 911 to report a shooting early on Tuesday that left 5 children and a man dead and a woman hospitalized with serious injuries. So that's 6 people. 7 people shot, 6 people. It's just terrible. So the woman was taken to Tulsa, Oklahoma hospital, and one of the kids was taken with her, but the kid died. The second case is over in Indianapolis.
Obviously, this is just the first step in getting these victims and the family members justice.
Now, first at 5, an arrest in the horrific mass shooting that happened Sunday on the city's northeast side. And we are learning he is no stranger to the victims. 5 people and an unborn baby were all killed inside a home on Adams Street early Sunday morning. A 16-year-old boy injured. 24 hours later, a family member arrested in connection with this case. WRTV's Megan Sanctorum has more.
We know IMPD detectives worked around the clock to make this arrest. At this point, they are not releasing the suspect's name or photo, only telling us he's under the age of 18. WRTV Investigates is learning more about that suspect, though. We've learned he is 17 years old and the son of a man killed in that home. The teen is accused of going on a shooting spree, killing his own family members, as well as a pregnant woman and her unborn child. This case, unlike anything IMPD has seen recently, more than 60 officers worked the case. We spoke with Rick Snyder, president of the Indianapolis Fraternal Order of Police, about it.
What you saw yesterday was the mayor step up and very forcefully say, we're going to get a handle on this very specific incident. We're going to bring folks to justice related to this incident. And he's concurring. We've got to have that same commitment on every instance of violence in our community.
We do know one member of the family survived that mass shooting. He is 16 years old and, according to police, still in the hospital recovering. Working for you, Megan Sanctorum, WRTV.
And the 17-year-old suspect will more than likely be charged as an adult because state law does not require a minor facing murder charges to undergo a waiver hearing from juvenile court to adult court. And the victims have been identified as 42-year-old Kezzy Childs, 42-year-old Raymond Childs, 18-year-old Elijah Childs, 13-year-old Rita Childs, an IPS student, and 19-year-old Kira Hawkins and her unborn baby. WRTV was there as several people came by the home to pay their respects. They included longtime friends of Kezzy Childs, India Hammond, and Anastasia Dittman. Hammond says she spoke to a surviving son in the Childs family. She says he and others are trying to cope as best they can.
Disbelief. I've been heartbroken since I heard it because this doesn't make sense. It's senseless. They're good people. I don't know why this took place. I don't know what led to it. I'm very sure people are going to assume whatever it is that they want to assume. But the bottom line is they didn't deserve this. They were good people. I know her heart. I know how she was raised. She was a good person. This was uncalled for.
Surviving family members were understandably not ready to speak. And Mayor Joe Hogsett hailed today's arrest as the first step towards justice. His statement also said in part, quote, "While nothing can bring back the child's family, I hope that the swift action of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department offers some comfort to all of those who have been left to grapple with this tragic loss."
And this is a case where a teenager shot his older brother, older sister. He shot his whole family. They're saying he's 17 years old. One of the victims was 13, one of the victims was 18, one of the victims was 19. The other 2 victims were the parents. He used a Draco, by the way, which is a weird pistol that fires rifle rounds. It looks like an AK-47, but it's like smaller. That happened.
But so we've
on
got,
top of the FBI agents being killed, we have these 2 shootings.
Right. And so the shootings, to go back to the Muskogee one really quick, that was a situation where the man that was the shooter actually resided in the house. He wasn't in the house immediately prior to the shooting. He was the boyfriend and father of a couple of the victims. His brother, his either current or ex-girlfriend, and I believe there was a total of 8 children in the home at the time. 5 of them died. So the woman lived. Yeah. Okay, so it was five children.
She's in the hospital.
The woman lived, and then there was an adult male who was said to be the shooter's brother. Okay, and so it was, there's no information about why, of course. You know, it's clearly a domestic issue. The children were 6, 5, 9, 3, and 2. Like, they were young children. The mom, and I'm not entirely sure that all those children were hers, it's a little confusing. It seems like maybe it could be all from the same family. I'm not really sure. It's sad.
It looked like a Brady Bunch family to me.
Sort of. And then
from the name.
And then because the brother was there, I wasn't sure if maybe, she was staying. I'm not sure what the situation was. It seems like it's some sort of domestic issue. The shooter was the mom's boyfriend or former boyfriend, and some of the children that died had his same last name. So that leads me
right,
to
and the rest had her last name.
So
it's Jerron Pridgeon is the shooter. Javarian Lee is his brother. Let's start there. Why do you shoot your brother?
It had to have been very personal.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things that could push people to their limits, but that's a lot, big line that he's crossing.
I don't know, I don't know the stats on killing one's brother, a brother killing a brother. What is that like? A very personal, grudging, type of thing. Now, it goes further because either way, his brother didn't have the same last name as him, correct? I'm trying to sort of sort through who's who. Jerron.
I'm sorry, her name was Anderson. Yeah,
then,
so Lee and Pridgeon are the last names of the brothers, and Anderson is the girlfriend.
Okay, so it doesn't appear that any of the children would have been the shooter's nieces or nephews. It actually looks like they were all girls, but I'm not entirely sure. So it appears that those children are the shooter's children. So not only has he killed his brother, tried to kill his ex-girlfriend, and he has killed several of his children. And there were, I believe, 3 children in the house that survived. So 5 children died. 3 children survived. There were 2 adults. The male adult died. The female adult is in critical condition in the hospital, but he was trying to kill her. What makes a man go do that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you say that you don't remember hearing a lot about it, but I think I have. And I guess we talked about siblicide. I guess this would actually be fratricide. So that goes all the way back to the Bible. That goes back to any of your Abrahamic religions. They're going to recognize the biblical account of Cain and Abel. Okay. And then if you go over to ancient Rome for a different take, you've got Romulus and Remus. So there's in each society, the origins of society, one of the earliest crimes is generally fratricide. Brothers killing brothers.
Right. Okay.
So that's a thing.
So it's specifically brothers killing brothers. No, I believe that it's a thing. It's just when I associate, and maybe it is because all the children that are involved in this particular case that made me go that's really weird. It's a weird combination of people. And I don't want to speculate on what sort of domestic situation might have been going on because it really doesn't matter. It wouldn't excuse the behavior. But, it seems to me like the shooter, he clearly was, it seemed like he was looking to take everybody out. Isn't that? Now, he ran away from cops.
I mean, yeah, he tried.
And I don't think he was going
he fired at them.
Well, they fired at him for sure, but he was immediately taken into custody. So he was he was on the scene still when cops were coming. And from what I've read over different sources, he just went in guns ablazing. I can't even imagine how.
Which is, yeah. So we've got basically in these 2 situations, we have 2 very different types of family killing. I get to sit here and talk about this, and I'll probably figure out how to drop a couple of news clips about this in here. These cases are unique in that they happen in, that's how 2021 kicked off, was a couple of mass killings. There was also a brother who killed his brother in Chandler, Arizona. That's 3, and it was all in this close proximity. But that's not the most interesting case that we have in true crime news. I don't think. Did you see the court document I sent you late last night, by the way?
I did. I started reading it and I fell asleep.
Yeah, no, it's fine. You don't have to read the whole thing. So the last case we're going to talk about before we get into our family homicide case for, this little series we're going to do, is down in
The
Louisiana.
family case instead of saying our family case, like it's one of our families.
Before we get into a family case, that we're going to spend some time on,
the family case,
and we just talked about that there are multiple. We're covering the killing of an entire family, and that's why these cases, I guess, stood out to me when they ran through my news feed. Specifically, you're right. This is fratricide going on, and there are unique elements to that type of crime. But what I came across that was even more interesting that's happened in the last couple of weeks is this bizarre story down in Louisiana.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to run y'all through a sequence of events, but first thing I want to commend, look, our detectives did an outstanding job on this investigation. They tirelessly continued to work till we can bring these guys to justice. So I want to throw that out there and commend these guys and the hard work which they were able to accomplish this, to bring this family peace and justice at the end so they can have closure. Real quick, January 13, 2021, we had two victims, Ms. Brittany Cormier, 34 years of age, who lived in Montague, and Ms. Hope Nettleton, 37 years of age, who lived in Montague. We were able to make 3 arrests through their investigation, which was Bro Cormier, 35 years old, from Kaplan, Andrew S. Kahn, which is 25 years of age, he's from Karen Crow, and Dalvin Wilson, 22 years of age, from Eunice, Louisiana. A little bit of back history. Bo Cormier, he was arrested for rape in March of 2020. His niece he's already a convicted sex offender. Bo hired basically Andrew Escon and Dalvin Wilson to murder the rape victims so they cannot testify. Bo, Andrew, and Dalvin traveled to Montague to conduct surveillance on the residents sometimes after July, but before November. On November 2020, Andrew and Dalvin returned to Montague to commit the homicide using a family member's vehicle, but it was a failed attempt. On January 13th, Dalvin used Andrew's truck to commit the murder. Shooter asking for the rape victim by name, and Brittany Cormier tells the shooter she's the rape victim, accepting her fate to save the life of an actual victim. Hope Nettleton actually struggled with the shooter and was shot fighting him off. Andrew Escon and Dalvin Wilson both confessed their involvement in this incident. Detectives worked hand in hand with Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office, Vermilion Parish Sheriff's Office to investigate this homicide. And I'd like to give a thanks to those sheriffs that were very helpful, especially Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office, Vermilion Parish and Acadia Parish Sheriff's Office, and Eunice Police Department, and the City Marshal assisted in apprehension of the suspect. Sheriff Mark Garber, Lafayette Parish, those guys were great and helping our detectives so we can solve this particular crime, and also Sheriff Mike Couvion from Vermilion Parish. At this time, I'll take a few questions. If y'all have questions in reference to the incident, I'll answer what I can, but we still investigating a few things in reference to this.
Just for clarification, you're saying Bro hired the 2 other suspects to kill his niece that he's accused of raping?
Correct. He basically went there to take witnesses that was going to testify in a crime which he's currently dealing with. He's had a case that's going on up in the Lafayette area where he's was charged with rape.
Okay. And so when he arrives at the home on Montague, he hired somebody to do it. One of the shooters came across Brittany, and did she say she was the?
They were asking for the victim, and she said she said it was her.
And then from there, they shoot and kill her?
Yeah, shot and killed her, and then Miss Nettleton, with a struggle, she ended up getting killed as well.
So the actual victim of the initial crime is still alive?
Yes.
Okay. What is Brittany's relation to, because they all have the same last name, is she a relation?
Yes, they're related.
What's their relationship?
I'm not going to discuss none of that. It's just protection of the victim.
You said at the start of this press conference how important it was for you to bring, closure, justice to the family. Can you just talk about that a little bit more?
More importantly, look, we don't get these type of things happen, double homicides in Terrebonne Parish, especially Montague, which is a small town. People are very close over there, and there were good people that ended up dying as a result. So with closure to family, and more importantly, the family and the community down there. I mean, this really hit that community hard. So we worked real hard so we can bring peace to the families and the communities down in Montague.
How many people were in the home present during the time of the incident?
To my knowledge, there was roughly, I think there was initially 5.
Were there any witnesses to the?
There was a witness that initially gave us the initial information on the case, along with a vehicle, which we were able to follow that up, which led to the events, the turn of events, where we're actually lead the investigation to Lafayette Parish and Kaplan and Eunice in those areas.
Is there any more information you can give about the first, I guess, attempted homicide that happened in November, I think you said?
Well, in November, there was one gentleman there that saw the vehicle with a license plate number, and that report, when we started carrying out the investigation, which led there was a connection between that vehicle and the suspect vehicle, and our detectives doing a great job were able to connect those dots, which they basically confessed. 2 of them confessed that was their first attempt, but it was unsuccessful.
Can you discuss the crime rate in the area? I know you said that this is very unusual.
I mean, we have homicides, but to have a double homicide in this nature, it's very unusual, especially to that level. This is probably one of the first couple cases where you had a murder for hire, where we actually had to investigate a crime such as that to that level.
Does a crime like this become immediately a top priority for you all? This seems like something that doesn't happen every day.
First of all, any crime of violence, when it comes to homicides and murders, our detectives work. We try to solve those crimes for the bring peace for the families so they can have closure. So our guys work hard. And but when you start investigating a case like this, and you keep getting leads, we keep going to there's no more leads, and we start listening for more leads. This thing just kept continuous where it led. It was for a couple weeks. It took these guys to solve it, but considering what we started with, and to where we were to finish this case, or to continue to finish this case, look, they did a great job. And I can't say enough from the other agencies from Lafayette and who assisted us when we got there with open arms. But, that's what it's about with law enforcement. When we work together, we can accomplish things and put people so they can have peace and closure.
To be clear, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What was the relationship between the 3 suspects? Like, how do they know each other?
They were friends.
To be clear, did the suspects turn themselves in, or did you guys have to locate them?
We located them all where we actually made arrest.
Sorry, I have one more question. Hope, the other victim that we see, was she just at the home at the time?
She was a neighbor. She was a neighbor of the intended target home, and just happened to be there. But we are releasing a press release for y'all that may answer some of the other questions. But I was certainly here to answer any other questions y'all may have. But we're still investigating. We still looking at everything. And but like I said, our guys are going to work tirelessly till they get this thing done, and the family gets closure.
Without going into obviously details of your investigation, how did you all connect all the dots to lead back to Bro?
Well, basically we was able to pick up a lot of cameras, cameras like locals that have surveillance cameras on the road, and track the direction that vehicle was going based off of that investigation. Doing that, it led us to where we were, and past incident that happened in November really got us to that area. And the neighbor that reported that incident, that was very critical. Back in November, that allowed us to connect the dots. Where these guys, like I said, I can't say enough on the job that these guys did. I'm thoroughly proud of what they've done. That way this family can have closure. And to me, that was very important.
that neighbor in the November incident, how did they come involved? Did they see the truck linger?
He happened to be outside, saw the vehicle in front of that residence, and he was able to put notice that he knew him, and they took off.
What's your message to the mourning families right now?
Look, my message to them, my prayers are with them. I hope God can help them find peace, and I keep them in my prayers because I know it's a very tragic event. But we worked extra hard just to make sure this family gets the closure that they deserve on this. I would turn it over to the district attorney if he's got any, if y'all may have questions on him. But like I said, we do have a press release. We got a press release prepared for y'all, and it maybe answer some other questions y'all may have. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Sheriff. Once again, I'd like to commend all the officers involved in this investigation. This situation has rocked our community, and it will not be tolerated. These guys worked tirelessly around the clock solving this case. They started off with just a smidgen of evidence and took it from there, and ultimately ended up with 3 arrests with confessions. So I'm very, very proud of our local law enforcement team. They did an excellent job, and I commend them. The district attorney's office is now prepared to take over with the prosecution of this case. We feel like we have a very strong case. I will get convictions in this case. The only issue, I'm sure everybody wants to know, is about the death penalty. That decision I do not make on my own. I'm in the process of scheduling a meeting with the victims. That decision will be made with myself and them after we have a long conference and a lot of soul searching as to what's the proper thing to do. But as far as the death penalty, it is absolutely on the table.
What's the process for that?
Well, they've been arrested. Bonds have been set at $2 million apiece. I'm considering filing a motion to increase the bonds because these are very, very dangerous people. I do not want them on the streets, any chance of them being on the streets. At that point, arraignment will be set, and we will go through the normal procedures of setting it for trial at some point in the future. If the death penalty is actually sought, it's a much more tenuous process, but we will do whatever is necessary and whatever the victims desire.
Can I get you just to say and spell your first and your last name for credit reasons?
Joe Waits, Jr., W-A-I-T-Z.
How much does it help you have confessions from all 3? You feel really confident going forward with this?
I feel very confident in this case. You know, we have admissions by 2 of the suspects, and they have given us details that no one else would know. So I feel very confident that we will end up with convictions in this case. Yes, sir.
I see the charges here, first-degree murder. Now, because he hired him, is there some separate charges that you added to that, or is it all?
There are additional charges that we may pursue, but the hiring for murder is a first-degree charge in and of itself. Thank you all.
Well, I appreciate y'all being here, and like I said, we're going to be providing a press release for y'all. But again, thank y'all for getting it out so the public knows and the community knows that we were working real hard to get this taken care of for our community. Thank you.
From what I can tell, the person that's accused of orchestrating this is not the brightest bulb. He's a sex offender. He's on a sex offenders registry in Louisiana. He has gone to court over a couple of different things that aren't even related to it, where he has tried to stifle that he is a sex offender.
From the United States District Court in the Eastern District of Louisiana, in the matter of M&M Wireline and Offshore Services, LLC. Factual background. In this litigation, plaintiff Beau Cormier alleges that he was employed by defendant M&M Wireline and Offshore Services as a deckhand on the MV M&M 102. Cormier states that on November 30th, 2014, he was transported from a platform in the Grand Bay field to the nearby marine vessel M&M 102 by a John boat owned and operated by defendant Saratoga Resources. According to Cormier, the operator of the John boat positioned the boat so that the front of the John boat was near or pushed up against the side of the marine vessel M&M 102. When Cormier attempted to step onto the deck, He alleges that the John boat backed away from the marine vessel, requiring him to jump back onto the John boat. As a result, Cormier avers that he lost his balance and landed partially on the John boat and partially in the water, causing the injuries at issue in this litigation. Cormier contends that the John boat was not connected or secured to the marine vessel in any way, nor were there other mechanisms in place to allow for safe ingress and egress to the marine vessel. Further alleges that at the time of this accident, the marine vessel was owned and operated by M&M Wireline and engaged in operations by Saratoga. The plaintiff alleges that defendants M&M Wireline and Saratoga collectively are liable to him for the injuries caused by their negligent acts and for failing to provide seaworthy vessels. The defendants argue that any injury Cormier sustained resulted solely from Cormier's own fault, and that Cormier's alleged back injury pre-existed the incident at issue in this litigation. For the procedural background, on October 6, 2015, M&M Wireline filed a complaint for exoneration or limitation of liability pursuant to Rule F2 of the Supplemental Rules for Admiralty or Maritime Claims and Asset Forfeiture Actions. M&M Wireline filed an amended complaint on October 21, 2015. Cormier filed his answer to M&M Wireline's complaint for limitation of liability and his own claims on November 25, 2015. Before the court are plaintiff Beau Cormier's motion in limine to exclude the criminal records of Beau Cormier, supplemental and amended motion in limine to exclude the criminal records of Beau Cormier, and motion to strike defendant's proposed finding of fact number 4. On September 15, 2016, Cormier filed his motion in limine to exclude the criminal records. On September 22nd, defendants opposed the motion. With leave of the court, Cormier filed a reply. On December 8, 2016, Cormier filed his supplemental and amended motion in limine to exclude the criminal records of Beau Cormier. On February 2, 2017, defendants filed an opposition, and with leave of the court, Cormier filed a reply. Additionally, on September 22, 2016, Cormier filed his motion to strike defendants' proposed finding of fact number 4. On December 23, 2016, defendants filed an opposition. The parties' arguments. Cormier's arguments in support of the motion. In his motion, Cormier argues that this court should exclude any evidence of Cormier's criminal records from the trial. First, Cormier avers that defendants' exhibit list and the parties' proposed pretrial order include the everly vague statement that defendants wish to introduce the, quote, criminal records of Beau Cormier, end quote. Cormier asserts that this is a vague and overbroad designation that does not specify which records defendants plan to introduce or provide an appropriate description as required by the court's pretrial notice. Second, Cormier contends that evidence of any criminal record should be excluded under Federal Rules of Evidence 401, 403, and 609. Cormier argues that the records are irrelevant pursuant to Rule 401, and any probative value that they may have is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice pursuant to Rule 403. According to Cormier, the records are also inadmissible pursuant to Rule 609, as more than 10 years have passed since the convictions, and any probative value they may have is outweighed by its prejudicial effect. Additionally, Cormier alleges that evidence of any convictions arising from nolo contendere pleas should be excluded pursuant to Federal Rule of Evidence 410. Finally, Cormier asserts that if the court finds the evidence of criminal records to be admissible, the evidence should be limited to the name of the crime, the time and place of the conviction, and the punishment. 2. The defendant's arguments in opposition to this motion. Defendants oppose Cormier's motion to exclude evidence of criminal records. First, defendants argue that the criminal records are admissible for impeachment purposes under Federal Rule of Evidence 609. Defendants allege that Cormier was convicted of a simple burglary felony in 2009 while he was already serving time after his probation was revoked for a 2004 conviction for carnal knowledge of a juvenile. According to defendants, Cormier was sentenced to 5 years in prison for the simple burglary conviction to be served concurrently with the 7.5-year sentence for the carnal knowledge of a juvenile conviction. Defendants point out that under Federal Rule of Evidence 609B, a felony conviction is admissible if the criminal defendant was either convicted or still serving jail time for the conviction within the past 10 years. Second, defendants aver that Cormier's criminal records may also be offered as relevant evidence for the issue of Cormier's future earnings. Defendants argue that the criminal records show that Cormier has repeatedly gone to prison, making it difficult to maintain a job and creating a major hindrance getting hired in the future. Additionally, defendants argue that while a no contest plea itself may not be admissible as evidence, it does not mean the underlying felony conviction based on the plea is inadmissible as well. Defendants aver that the limitations under Rule 609 as to what information regarding the conviction is admissible does not apply when the criminal records are not used for impeachment purposes, such as when they are relevant to Beau Cormier's future employment and likely future earnings. Defendants contend that there is no undue prejudice here, as the fact that Cormier's criminal records paint him in a bad light is one of the reasons that they are relevant to his future employability and likely future earnings. 3. Cormier's reply in further support of the motion. Cormier argues in response that because his convictions for simple burglary and carnal knowledge of a juvenile resulted from pleas of no contest, they are inadmissible under Federal Rule of Evidence 410. Cormier asserts that his conviction for simple burglary in 2009 was within the 10-year period for admissible convictions under Federal Rule of Evidence, but it should be excluded under 609A1A as the probative value is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice. Cormier presents that he pled nolo contendere to a felony carnal knowledge of a juvenile charge in 2002 when he was 17 years old, that he received a suspended sentence of 7.5 years, and he was placed on 5 years of supervised probation. Cormier avers that in 2007 his probation was revoked after failing to appear at a probation revocation hearing, and he was sentenced to serve the 7.5 years with credit for time served. Cormier thus contends that he was serving a sentence because his probation was revoked and not because of his felony carnal knowledge of a juvenile conviction, and so that conviction shall be excluded for being more than 10 years old. Cormier argues that the carnal knowledge of a juvenile conviction has no relevance or probative value, and any probative value it may have is substantially outweighed by the danger of an unfair prejudice. Thus, Cormier asserts it should be excluded under Federal Rules of Evidence 609A1A. Cormier points out that this court previously excluded from evidence Cormier's driver's license bearing the phrase sex offender on it, after defendants concede the point that it should be excluded. Cormier further avers that he was never convicted of cruelty to animals, as defendants suggested, as the misdemeanor charge was dismissed in December of 2007. Cormier argues that evidence of mere arrest and criminal charges is not admissible. Furthermore, Cormier alleges the fact that M&M Wireless hired him within a few weeks after being released from prison contradicts the defendant's argument that Cormier's convictions are relevant to his future earning capacity. Cormier points out that he has not been incarcerated again since his release in 2011, or convicted of any other crime, since he pled no contest to the simple burglary charge in 2009. Cormier also asserts that defendant's economic expert made no mention of Cormier's criminal records when calculating Cormier's future losses. Moreover, Cormier argues that defendant's vocational rehabilitation expert only mentioned Cormier's criminal records in his report, but does not indicate that it would have an adverse impact on Cormier's employability and future earnings.
These attorneys actually they win part of this, they lose part of this. But what was so funny about this was, first of all, anytime you get into admiralty and maritime law, I can't help but think of sovereign citizens. I don't know if you've ever read up on that. It's a fascinating read to go down that particular path. That comes up. And this is very much like a car accident situation, like where someone's had a car accident and they go and they get an attorney on retainer, usually with some kind of like contingency set up. Well, in this case, these people did a lot of work to stifle this criminal record. I mean, this takes place over years, from 2014 to now, and those attorneys did a pretty good job. What's so ironic to me about all of it is we're talking about someone who has now been accused of hiring a hitman. And, on the one hand, you're talking about future earnings and you're talking about what his employability in the future will be. And he has to some degree, read this. I don't really know that he would necessarily understand it, because he hires not one, but two hitmen after all of these court procedures are over. It's mind-boggling. If it weren't so tragic, it would have this sort of air of hilarity to it, but it doesn't have that because two women lost their lives defending a child. Whatever he is doing, I guess he has not learned yet, because he is now accused of another sex offense. When people are accused of sex offenses, the smart thing to do is, if you did it, go to court, work out a plea deal. If you didn't do it, go to court and try and plead your case. The system doesn't always work, but this guy had an alternative plan. He decided, since he had been accused of a sex offense in the past and was now being accused of a sex offense again, that he would pay two of his idiot friends to go and kill a woman that had accused him of rape. It gets so much worse than that. But so let's just start off with, this is in Louisiana. The gentleman behind all of this is already on the sex offenders registry. And in the newspapers, he's identified as Beau Cormier. So Beau Cormier, I want to say the older brother by a little bit of Brittany Cormier. His friends, Beau's friends, are Andrew and Dalvin. And the way that this story unfolded was in March, right before the pandemic started last year, Beau, the already convicted sex offender, was arrested and charged with raping a family member who is connected to Brittany.
It's her daughter.
I understand, but they're not really identifying it that way. I mean, I know who it is. I'm just saying.
Oh, it says uncle hired two hitmen to shoot and kill niece who accused him of
Oh,
rape.
is that what? So he was arrested and charged with raping the family member in March of 2020. So then he decided to get Andrew Eskeen and Dalvin Wilson. He says that he will pay them if they go and kill the victim who's supposed to testify against them, his niece. So he hired them. They travel to Brittany's home and they start conducting surveillance. And this is in, I guess, late part of last year. In November, the geniuses, Andrew and Dalvin, return to kill the victim, and they screw up. On January the 13th, they come back. They rush the home, and they find 5 people inside. The victim, Beau's sister, Brittany, and Hope Nettleton, the neighbor. So the kids are in a closet while Brittany is confronting Andrew and Dalvin. They are there to kill the victim. So Brittany tells them that she is her daughter's name.
Because they asked for her by name.
Brittany and Hope get into a struggle with Andrew and Dalvin. Andrew and Dalvin kill them. So this is like the opposite of fratricide. And it's hard to wrap your head around this for a second. A hitman is hired to kill the niece of the man who hires him and ends up killing the sister of the man who hired. It's so awful. But
right, and
Brittany's actions were pretty selfless.
At first, I thought that they had killed her by mistake. None of it's funny. None of it's entertaining at all. But I thought, wow, a couple of morons are hired to kill somebody and they kill the wrong person. That's that's beyond everybody's worst nightmare. And then, some more information came out about it and came to light that the intended target was the daughter of the lady who actually ended up being killed. And the neighbor it was just by coincidence, she was visiting. What a terrible brother.
No kidding. What an asshole, man. Jesus. What I sent you last night is a court document where he's basically suing his employer. He got out of prison and he had an accident on a boat. But what he's suing over is when they're trying to settle this accident out, his attorney hires an expert to basically evaluate his life. And that expert is challenged in court. Defendants basically say, well, the plaintiff in this case is a sex offender. So his valuation and his future wages and his being in and out of prison, it's not really accounted for here, and we'd like to do that. And so his attorneys make arguments that his sex offender status and his criminal record are unlikely to affect his valuation of what his life's earnings would be like. And it goes back and forth. If you read through it, it's an interesting read, mainly from the perspective that the plaintiff's attorneys, which is Beau, they make a good point, which is, well, you hired him, so clearly he's not going to have trouble getting work because, it's his employer that he's suing. But, it reads a lot like a car accident document, but with boats. And I thought that was just really interesting. Beau Cormier sued his employer after he got out of prison. And it really reads like he was trying to get a settlement out of it and kind of, go
was
back
he injured? Is that what happened?
Registry full time. Yeah. It's an injury case. He's claiming that basically he was on a boat and then stepped off onto this John boat. And when he moved the John boat back, the big boat moved and he couldn't get between the two. So he fell.
Oh.
He got stuck between two boats. I mean, it definitely has nothing to do with the fact that he seems to be the brightest bulb in the shed. This guy is just, You know,
Okay.
he's working with all the cylinders and all the parts.
So this brings me to another question I asked myself along the lines of the serial killers and, how many FBI agents. Is a lot of FBI agents to have died in the line of duty. Where does it, and perhaps the answer is what you just said, but where does, oh no, I've done something bad and somebody told on me, so I'm going to get in trouble for it, turn into let's kill her so I can get in even more trouble? I don't understand.
The lines are pretty blurry for me here with this guy. Just like they're blurry for me from the perspective of how did he think that conspiracy to commit a contract murder was better prison sentence than the rape charges? I don't know. The other part of it was like, how did he think he was going to get away with this? Because I looked at the mugshots and the criminal records and a lot of the histories of the two gentlemen he hired, and I will just say this: they allegedly committed this act. Allegedly, he hired them.
They've been arrested and charged with it at the moment. I mean, yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Allegedly,
$2 million
they have not been
bond.
convicted.
Right.
Yeah, but I just want to say that there's so much genius going on here. I'm shocked. Brittany, the woman who died protecting her child, is cut from the same cloth as this dude. And I seriously think there should be a DNA test done, unless we just think that she got all of the brain cells in the family. Because what she did, what she and Hope did, was truly levels of heroic.
Sure, yeah.
When you step up, you're trying to thwart a contract killing. I don't want to, this is not a professional murder. It's a hired murder, poorly executed. The surveillance is poorly executed. They fail at least once, maybe twice.
See, and I don't know where the standard is exactly, because I don't know, the fact that they got caught. Oh, well, see, that just gets confusing for me. I think it's a good thing.
The minute that you get caught, you failed the class. You fail the contract killing class the minute you get caught. I'm being facetious. There's not actually a class on contract killing. There's some books on it. I'm sure somebody might teach a course on it. I don't think it would last very long. But my point is, this guy really didn't want to be hung up on. I assume he didn't have a very good time in prison the first time. He did not want to be hung up on. The previous charge was like a version of statutory rape. So it's the type of abuse that is an older person taking advantage of a younger person.
I think that guy he has problems on multiple levels. And I know that there are a lot of people who somehow, and not a lot of people, but he's not the only criminal, rapist, killer person in the world. It just seems so unbelievable that he would even have been, accused of rape by his niece. And there's no indication of how old she is. We have no idea. I assume she's older because they believed that the mother was her, but I mean, I don't know. It doesn't seem I think these guys are just trying to get it done. And I never saw any amount of money mentioned. Did you?
I did not.
I think that's interesting because not that it matters, no amount of money would be, would justify it. But I was just interested to see what the exchange is, because it seems in some of these hired to kill non-professional situations, it is outrageous what ends up being traded for these services. This guy, I can't imagine what he was thinking. And I wish I could know, where is it that somebody says, oh, well, I can't go to jail for rape, so I'm going to kill the witness, have the witness killed. Where does that become a good idea?
I don't know where it becomes a good idea, but I will say he's listed as a pallbearer at her funeral.
I know. Crazy, isn't it?
And there's an age difference between him and them. So I'm saying Bo versus Andrew and Dalvin, there's an age difference. I don't know exactly what it is, but because the paperwork says two different things. The gist of it is Bo is 35. Andrew seems to be 25. And then Dalvin is either 22 or 24. She died on January 13th. They confessed to it. There's something going on there with that 10-year. There's an age difference. That's weird.
It is weird, but it could. I don't know. I don't think it really matters as much in, your 20s and 30s. And then how about the neighbor? Like, wow. How much?
She was just trying to stop it.
Well, she just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, that is the worst thing. And so an account I read was that she put up a fight, and that in the fight to try and prevent this, she was shot and killed. That just really got out of hand really bad. I mean, just really bad.
By the way, they're still adding charges in here. Like solicitation for murder for hire got put on there yesterday. There's another criminal conspiracy count for everybody. One more attempted first-degree murder for everybody else. So there's all sorts of stuff. They're just piling it on these three guys right now. And they should be. Ever what the outcome of this case is tragic. And I get the feeling there'll probably be a death penalty case.
Where are they? They're in Louisiana, right?
Yeah, it's Louisiana. Will they carry it out? Probably not. I mean, executions down there have been stalled for a long time. But
I think that
it still has the death penalty.
I think it's more like you're sentenced to sit on death row as opposed to actually dying.
That's accurate. We're covering these. These are sort of the kickoff to 2021 for us, case-wise. What we're really covering for the next few episodes is it's a case some people have heard of, and it's had like a popular podcast in the last year or so, and a docuseries came out about it, and that's where some of the material is coming from. There's actually multiple books about this case. And then there's a similar case really close to it that is in the mix here for me. That'll sort of be the way that we wrap all of this up. And I've said this before, but we don't like to just cover a case for the sake of covering it. We like to cover it if like maybe there's something new we can offer, a different angle in how to look at the case. And this case is the Fatal Vision murders. This is the case of Jeffrey McDonald's entire family being killed. So that's how we're starting 2021, and that's what's leading up to our season 2. I guess this is like the soft start to our season 2.
Well,
technically we've been going for.
It's funny because this was actually on the list for season 1. We were supposed to do it before the end of the year, but Adam Walsh turned out to be like a bigger deal than we realized it was going to be. And so that's why we're having this soft opening, because I feel like the McDonald case is worth talking about. Absolutely. But it just sort of shifted everything.
Yeah, this is no doubt one of the most controversial cases when it comes to family sides. It has a book called Fatal Vision. Fatal Vision was published in 1983, and so then that spawned a second debate. So there's the murders themselves. They took place on February 17th, 1970, on the Army base at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Whoever committed this crime, whether it's Jeffrey McDonald or someone else, killed Jeffrey McDonald's pregnant wife and 2 young daughters.
When military police arrived at the McDonald home early on the morning of February 17th, they found the captain sprawled on a bedroom floor. His wife, who had been expecting a child, lay dead beside him.
It was one of the most sensational murders of its time. In the early morning hours of February 17, 1970, at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Colette McDonald, 4 months pregnant, and her daughters Kimberly, age 5, and Kristen, age 2, were savagely beaten and stabbed to death.
During this attack, I suffered approximately 19 stab wounds, including one which collapsed my right lung.
Husband and father Jeffrey McDonald was severely injured as well.
McDonald told a bizarre story. 3 young men and a woman had attacked the family for no apparent reason.
But suspicion quickly focused on Jeffrey McDonald as the killer, a handsome Princeton-educated Green Beret captain and emergency room doctor. McDonald has always said he is innocent, but he was convicted and given multiple life sentences.
Your story doesn't ring true. I've studied a lot of crime scenes, and there's something wrong with this one.
The story was detailed in the popular 1984 NBC miniseries, Fatal Vision.
Well, what are you trying to say?
This was a staged scene.
You mean I staged the scene?
I think so.
It was based on the book by Joe McGinnis.
Have you agreed upon the verdict in this case?
Yes, sir.
And left little doubt that Jeffrey McDonald had killed his family without remorse.
Guilty.
And yet...
I believe him to be innocent.
You do believe him to be innocent?
Yes, I do, because no one has ever showed me any kind of convincing argument for his guilt. They just simply have not. This case has been on my mind now for probably over 20 years.
And the fact that this man has taken up McDonald's cause is significant. He is Errol Morris, Academy Award-winning documentarian, winner of the MacArthur Genius Grant, and someone known for challenging what appears to be the truth.
Once you create a story, a narrative, and let's say it's a compelling narrative, it may not be a true narrative, but it's a believable narrative, it may be difficult or impossible to shed it. What happens when all the fingers are really pointing at you saying you're guilty, you're guilty, you're guilty, you're guilty?
Morris knows all about that. His 1988 film, The Thin Blue Line, is credited with helping free Randall Dale Adams, a man who was wrongly convicted of murdering a police officer.
It's like a bad dream. You want to wake up, but you can't do it.
Morris even got Adams's accuser to confess he'd framed an innocent man.
Well, what do you think about whether or not he's innocent? I'm sure he is. How can you be sure? Because I'm the one that knows.
It seems like you just have this passion for maybe going after stories that are hard.
I like hard stories. I like digging. Maybe I'm one of those people that's always turning over a rock and looking at what's underneath.
We were wrong, but we had in our minds a mindset.
He turned his lens on the powerful in The Fog of War, his Oscar-winning portrait of Vietnam-era Defense Secretary Robert McNamara.
Well, we're here to put Caesar in the ground today,
And he embraced the oddball in his provocative examination of pet cemeteries, Gates of Heaven. And if Morris courts the image of an eccentric, don't be fooled. And how many commercials have you made over the years?
Maybe 1,000 commercials.
And he is the hard-driving director of commercials.
If we all learn to pull our weight.
For everything from Miller Beer to Nike shoes.
Let me see it. Seems like it should be shorter, doesn't it?
All this allows Morris to fund projects dear to his heart, like his multi-year study of the Jeffrey McDonald case, now a 500-page book, A Wilderness of Error.
This is a story where the defense was forced to play with a deck of cards where most of the cards had been withheld. It was just simply unfair.
McDonald has always maintained that 4 hippies entered his home, enacting what seemed to be a copycat version of the Manson family murders, a series of grisly killings that took place in California just a few months earlier. Errol Morris says that explanation proved to be too far-fetched for investigators who failed to preserve evidence that could have supported McDonald. You write that there were something like 27 different people traipsing through the crime scene?
Yes.
Furniture moved?
Yes.
Young, inexperienced investigators?
Yes.
Kind of a recipe for disaster, I guess, huh? The way you describe it.
Yes. Yes, 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 and yes.
In his narrative, Morris focuses on one person whose story actually backs up McDonald's account.
Captain Jeffrey McDonald should be freed once and for all and not to have to go through all of what he's been going through for the last several years.
Her name was Helena Stokely, a well-known drug user and sometime police informant in the Fort Bragg area. Until her death in 1983, Stokely repeatedly confessed that she and friends were in the McDonald house the night of the murders, including during this CBS News interview.
I walked into the master bedroom.
While Dr. McDonald was unconscious?
Yes.
What did you see when you walked in?
Colette was sleeping on the bed.
In fact, one military police officer actually spotted a woman matching Stokely's description near the crime scene on the night of the murders. Yet when Helena Stokely testified at McDonald's trial,
the case hinges on this woman's testimony, what she's going to say on the stand, and suddenly she can't remember anything. She becomes a blank slate.
It's one of the great mysteries of the McDonald case. But years later, an important witness offered an explanation for why Stokely changed her story that one critical time.
A guy comes forward, a federal marshal, and says, I was there. And the prosecutor threatened her and told her essentially to change her story or he would indict her for murder.
Why'd this guy wait so long to come forward?
I take him at his word that it had bothered him over the years and that he felt that he should say something.
Last summer,
to this day, the prosecution denies that there was any threat to Helena Stokely. But the claim is part of McDonald's latest appeal, scheduled to be heard this month in federal court. He'll also ask the court to consider DNA evidence that was not available at the time of his trial.
They did find hair under the fingernails of one of the girls that could not be sourced to anybody in the house.
No one in the family.
That's correct.
Not Jeffrey McDonald.
Not Jeffrey McDonald.
And though Errol Morris is confident of his conclusion that Jeffrey McDonald was railroaded, he's ready to face some fire. This could be very controversial. Are you looking forward to that, or?
I dread it, and yet I look forward to it in this sense. What happened here was wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong to convict a man under these circumstances. And if I can help correct that, I will be a happy camper.
But author Joe McGinnis says he stands by his judgment that McDonald is guilty, and the Justice Department still insists the right man was convicted. Jeffrey McDonald has been in jail for 30 years.
Thanks for joining us. You can reach us at 252-365-5593 or at truecrimexcess.com or truecrimexcess@gmail.com if you want to send us a note. This episode was brought to you by LabrottieCreations.com. That's LabrottieCreations.com. Check out the merchandise and specifically their fun Pop Pet art custom pieces made from photos of your very own pets. Use the promo code CRIMEXS, that's CRIMEXS, for 20% off a fun, brightly colored, happy piece of art of your own pet at their site, LabrottieCreations.com. Music in this episode was licensed for True Crime XS. The theme song was Indestructible by Noah Smith. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform or at TeePublic, Instagram, or Twitter. You can also join us on Patreon to fund future body exploration trips. But the best thing you can do for us is leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform and share us with your friends. And we'll see you next time. This is True Crime XS. And I'll link this whole document in so that people can look at it in the show notes if they want to check it out, because I thought it was a fascinating insight. It gives like a bunch of little tidbits about Cormier's criminal record. And one of the things we're doing with this episode, in case people haven't noticed, is we are transitioning. We're trying to do it slowly. Over the next series that we're about to do, we're trying to make it so that the audio quality is a little better for listeners and you have less of this
talking like I am right now. We're upgrading some of our equipment, some of our situations, so that the season 2 stuff, doesn't have all of this older audio in it. And that's what's happening right now.
How could you run me blind when I thought I was a navigator? I thought I could read the signs. You were sending up flares, red and gold everywhere. I remember my hand, thinking I had a chance, reaching out for a dance in the fiery air. Now I can't afford the cost of this living. Your love was a luxury you took from me. This poverty has made me so broken. The debt of this loss, too heavy to mention. Now I can't afford the cost of living if you don't pay me your attention. I don't know what grows from these tears that hit the ground. No, sure.